One of the goals that I have for this course is to give you ideas on how to use generative AI in practical settings where you're working with things like spreadsheets. Okay, so you have a Google Gemini Pro account, and so Gemini Pro does spreadsheets within the Google ecosystem. So what I've done here is I've made up a fake spreadsheet. Okay, it has golf scores for a certain person. When you keep golf scores, typically you keep some stats like fairways hit, the greens and regulations, what GIR stands for, putts, penalty strokes, those kind of things. Okay, and so my initial import of this, I had a fake data sheet made up, but my initial import did not have course rating and slope rating. These are a couple of numbers that basically tells you how hard a course would be. You can look those up. It's the way that the golf handicap system is scored. If you make a score, your handicap's based on how hard that course might be. Okay, so interestingly enough, I didn't have these two columns in the initial import. And so what I did within the Google ecosystem, I'm in Sheets within Google. I invoke the Gemini assistant, okay? And so you can see up here, one of the first things I asked is, can you look up the slope and course ratings for the forward tees for Torrey Pines South and add them? If you look, well, I cut that off, but I asked it to add that as columns to the spreadsheet. So it was able to do that, and it looked up this off the internet, and it inserted the course rating and the slope, which was useful. So once I knew that, basically I went through a series of steps to actually get it to add the rest of these columns. All right, so that's an interesting application. The other thing that I can do here is I could go in here and say, well, based on the course ratings and the scores, add a column of differentials. Differentials are the way that you compute your handicap. Okay, I'm going to hit submit there, and we'll let it work. Okay, so you see it applied that, and so notice I didn't give it a formula to apply, but if I click here, all right, it gives me a spreadsheet formula. Let me see if I can zoom that a little bit. It gives me the spreadsheet formula, and sure enough, I happen to know that this is right. You take the score minus the course rating, you multiply by 113, and you divide by the slope of the course, and that gives you the differential, all right? And so the way golf handicaps are computed is you take a certain number of the best differentials to come up with your final golf handicap. That's not the point. The point is, here I am using Gemini to do spreadsheet manipulations. I added a formula, I added some extra data. These are things that are useful to do. All right. So the next thing that I did, a lot of times when you have a spreadsheet, you want to do some data analysis. Okay. So the next thing I did is I went to another sheet, and let's see if I can find where I did that. Okay. I said, make a regression chart of scores versus putts. Put this in a new tab. Well, I couldn't actually get it to put it in the new tab, but it made this regression, and I was able to cut and paste that into a new tab in the spreadsheet. And so that's the wrong one. Let me go to sheet 2. So sheet 2, if I zoom in, I now have this, graph of number of putts versus scores. And as you might expect, if you putt better, you score better in golf. Okay, so the point of this example is that you don't have to go directly into some fancy AI system. You can go into the Google ecosystem, start working with spreadsheets, be able to manipulate the data, do visualizations, add data. That sort of thing is super useful. Now, this is within the Google ecosystem. You can do similar things within Copilot. You can do similar things within the Claude ecosystem. That's a little more flexible because it will actually work with Excel spreadsheets and directly with your file system. Throughout the course, I've mentioned the management of context files as a key to helping you be able to deploy AI to solve real world kind of problems. So I made this fake example that uses the Google Docs ecosystem where you can create daily notes about organizing an event. So I know a lot of you are Obsidian users and you keep your markdowns in Obsidian. You could do any other kind of system for note taking and then drop those into something like Google Drive to help you with some AI summaries. Okay, so I made this fake example where we're trying to organize an event that happens across time. Okay, so there's some event planning notes that start out, there's an invite list, there's a to-do list that's made. And then intentionally what happens within the days is different things change about the event. So along the way, you know, some things got done, so, an event venue was chosen on day 2, and then I can't remember what day it was. I think day 4. No, maybe it was day 5. Let me go back and look. Day 5. We got pulled into a big meeting. There's big news. The dinner's to include a lot more people. All right. And so that's going to force a change of venue and some other things. So it's supposed to simulate a real life kind of problem where you're trying to manage things and you're taking notes along the way and you want to be able to summarize those notes and make sure that you don't miss things. Okay. So once you have your notes all, collected, you can dump this into Google Drive. There's actually ways to map that into your regular computer folder, so it's not that hard of a problem to solve that. From there, once you're in the, I'm in the Google Drive, web interface. From there, you can click on Ask Gemini, and you want to be careful to make sure that it gets all the files. I think it's supposed to, you see this summarized by folder, and so you might think, oh, it's naturally going to include everything in the folder. But when I experimented with it, sometimes it would miss that. And so we want to make sure, we can select here and here. Everything's in this folder. We're going to add those. And I feel good about it now because there's 10 folders showing up here that are in this particular chat session about this set of notes. Okay, so maybe we would want to do something like give me a summary of where things stand. And it should look through the notes and, gives an event overview, the time, and you can check that. And, I'm not actually sure about how well it's doing. I didn't actually organize this event. This is all fake data. But it does give you a summary of what's going on. And as I made this fake data, I actually asked for the notes to include some open loops, things that didn't get done. So maybe you would say, I'm worried that I'm forgetting something. Please look through the notes for things that are mentioned to do, but that don't have notes showing that they're done. You can see where that would be a peace of mind kind of thing. Okay, so you submit that and it's going to go through that prompt and hopefully answer these questions. Okay, so here it goes. Based on the review of the to-do list, check elevator access for Sandra. That's a good one. Create a Spotify playlist. This was mentioned on day 4. All these things are interesting things that came from the notes that would be really easy to overlook if you had a bunch of notes. And so what you could do from there is you'd be tempted to export it to Docs, but they're still working on this. Export to Docs would actually put this back into the root folder. So I think it'd be better to just copy this, okay? Make a new file, new Google Docs file, and paste that right in. And now you have this list of things to work on that you might have forgotten on your event. Okay, so hopefully you can see where that would be a useful kind of thing that would generalize to different tasks that you might want to do. It also generalizes to different systems that you might want to use, because you can take similar approaches, I believe, in Copilot, and the Claude ecosystem works with your files on your computer, so it's a little more direct, and one of the reasons that I like to use it. So hopefully you find this example useful. It's not directly making an app, it's just using AI in what would be kind of a typical workflow where you're taking a lot of notes and trying to decide what should you do to make your event happen.